Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/KYHistoryPod. Welcome back to the Kentucky History Podcast. I'm your host, Jamison Cable, and I'm glad to be joined again with Trace Kirkwood about the history of Shelby County.
But yeah, so by 1900, the county kind of had reinvented itself: tobacco, hemp, and corn. So hemp and corn were still big, but Shelby County agriculture went through another very interesting transition. Hemp production died away. It went away not long after 1900. Kentucky hemp was no longer marketable, and you don't hear this discussed much in Kentucky. But the places like Mexico and the Philippines started producing hemp, and in the Philippines they could grow it year round. It also a round of hemp in the Philippines, the stalks grew 18 inches taller than the ones in Kentucky. So they just wiped the hemp industry out of the United States. A lot of people say, well, it's because they made marijuana illegal is what killed the hemp industry. No, it was foreign competition that did it. Labor was cheaper, longer growing season, longer stalks. It was all about the fiber within the stalks anyway. So if longer stalk equals more fiber and less area. So they just killed us, so hemp dies away. But again, that adaptive farming, Shelby County farmers started shifting to dairy. Now, what they were blessed with was, now they had rail, started to have good roads going into Louisville, and Louisville was expanding out into Jefferson County, wiping out farms. And so they needed truck farming, particularly dairy, to provide milk for the market in Louisville. And Louisville, at the time was one of the largest cities in the United States. So it was an important piece of the United States economy. And the Shelby County farmers capitalized on that. And by 1954, this is a staggering number to me. That by 1954, hemp production was gone. There were over 17,000 milk cows in Shelby County, with well over 400 dairy farms. Number one in the state. Number one in number of dairy farms, number one in the number of milk cows, number one in milk or dairy product production, with over 81 million pounds of dairy products were.
How many people were in Shelby County in 1950?
In 1950, the population in Shelby County in 1950 had not changed that much. 17,912 people.
So a cow per person.
A cow per person, more or less. Yeah, it was just a little shy of that. That's an interesting spin on it. I wish I said that to the leaders that I talked to. But they did. Those dairy products were worth $2.8 million. Interestingly, somewhere I misplaced this number, but in 1900, Jefferson County really was one of the leading dairy production counties in the state of Kentucky. But Shelby County, by the mid 20th century, eclipsed that. In 1954, Jefferson County only produced 35 million pounds of dairy products. So, we produced well over twice the amount they did in Jefferson County. Of course, that was all going to Jefferson County, most likely. So dairy was a very important part of dairy. And then in the 20th century, dairy and tobacco dominated the Shelby County agricultural economy, and hemp production disappeared, and so consistently in the 2000s or in the 20th century, Shelby County was at the top of tobacco production and dairy production, and some of the more cultivated crops like corn and soybeans. Again, that was West Kentucky just produces so much of that stuff that it probably wasn't very profitable here to do that. So Shelbyville used to have a tobacco festival every year. It was in the fall, and I've seen photographs of this, and I've talked to people who actually attended these events. Main Street from one end to another would be packed with thousands of people at the tobacco festival. And you just you think about a tobacco festival these days. Would it be terribly politically incorrect, but it was a thing. The other thing that they did at the at the tobacco festival is they had something they called a coon drag, and they would drag a dead coon through town, and people they would turn their coon dogs loose to chase it down. They drag it up to the courthouse. So, I've seen photos. You can't really tell anything from the photos, but it was like one of the more popular events at the tobacco festival. So you can see why they stopped this thing.
Yeah.
So now in 2017, Shelby County only produced 1.3 million pounds of burley tobacco. That's down from a high in 1987 of 9.2 million. So that economy's gone. Dairy has taken a worse shot than that. The other day I looked into it that we have 3 dairy farms left in Shelby County. That's down from 430 some odd dairy farms.
Yeah.
And so the and I think they maybe have 100 milk cows in the county now.
Wow.
So the adaptation now is to beef cattle, which has always been a big producer here in Shelby County. But I think there's 34,500 beef cattle. And farmers are going to say, well, that's not beef cattle. Beef cattle, 16,400, all cattle and calves. I don't pretend to understand this completely. I grew up in Louisville, but the total is 34,000. So
that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. So anywhere you go, you see cattle in Shelby County. Some of the old horse farms have been converted into cattle farms. There's still some horse farms around. It is a very identifiable industry in Shelby County. We proclaim ourselves as the American saddlebred capital of the world. I don't know a whole lot about saddlebred horses. I see their farms, and we have show arenas and several different farms in the county, and we market the horse prolifically in Shelby County, which isn't a bad thing. That's marketing, but it's a small part of the county's economy. So looking at today, I asked these leaders, I said, what do you think what do you think the leading industry in Shelby County is? And somebody said horses. It's not even close. Agriculture now accounts for 0.54% of the county's economy. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
One of the state's juggernauts of agricultural production. But, so much of the agriculture production now is out in the western counties.
Yeah.
Our number one employer is management occupations, 12.1%. But most of our industry now in Shelby County is not completely industrial, but we manufacture components for automobiles.
Yeah.
We don't assemble any automobiles here in Shelby County.
Just parts of it.
just parts of it, and they go to Georgetown and to Louisville, and maybe down to Bowling Green, and so that's our economy. And this is my Marxist history of Shelby County. Let me go find my red flag and start waving around. And there's a lot more to Shelby County history that we can discuss through those periods. It was an agricultural county. So this is the challenge that I remember one day I was in a meeting, and it was basically a marketing discussion. This is part of my job is economic development here in Shelbyville, and they said, what can we identify with Shelby County? We're talking about putting up new signs, I think, and what kind of graphics we might want to put on there, and
hemp, tobacco.
Tobacco. We can't do those. Horses, maybe, but that's a very small part of our economy, but very identifiable, and that's usually what we market with is the horse. But I was thinking we should put brake pads on them.
The steering wheel,
something like that. But and the Shelby County discounts its railroad history. Shelbyville does too. We got horses on everything, but this really was a railroad town, and it still is. By the trains that go through in the middle of the night, we still have two railroad lines that go through the city, the Southern Railroad, or Norfolk Southern now, and what was the Louisville Nashville when I first moved here, or CSX, I'm sorry, it is now R.J. Corman line, and I live very near both lines of railroad, and R.J. Corman is always hauling aluminum ingots somewhere. I think they go down to Russellville to the Logan aluminum plant down there.
Yeah.
So the railroads are a very important part of Shelby County's history, and Shelbyville. If I was doing a walking tour of downtown Shelbyville, I would point that out. That as the railroads became very important to the economy of Shelbyville and Shelby County, is when our buildings start to develop. Our historic buildings built in the early part of the 20th century reflect that relationship with the railroad. They were department stores. Our downtown had hardwares, grocery stores, department stores, and those types of things in it that depended on railroad delivery, of their goods. But the railroad is also taking tobacco out. We can go through town and see where the spur lines went to where tobacco warehouses once stood. Most of them been leveled. They're long gone. The foundation's just standing there, and if they're still standing, they're storing RVs and stuff like that, not tobacco. So boats, that's the other thing they store in those old tobacco warehouses. But the skeleton of that former economy is still there. That farm to market to farm sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now we are forever attached to the city of Louisville. And earlier you said that we were split off of Jefferson County to form Shelby County in 1792, but Jefferson County's taken us back.
That's
everybody's coming out from Jefferson County.
And that's kind of if you look at Fayette County and Jefferson County, the counties that surround them are slowly becoming part of them in a way. Still have the titles, but that's the way it's going, I guess.
In terms of population, let's look at that for a second.
Okay.
Real quick. So from 1820 to 1970, our population hovered around that 18,000, 17,000 number.
Wow.
In 1980, the population in Shelby County was 23,328. That's up from 18,999 in 1970. 1990, there wasn't a lot of growth between 1980 and 1990. 824 in 1990. But this is where it becomes staggering numbers. Year 2000, 33,337. 2010, 42,074. 2020, 48,461. So we are twice the size in 2020 as we were in 1990. and
Yeah.
that's just astronomical growth for a county.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I hope this is still a historical discussion. I hope I'm not too far off the
No, no,
tracks.
you're good. You're good. Yeah.
Uh, the um, this county is in an incredible transformation right now, and I talked about this very subject to a group to a couple of classes at Shelby County High School, and I thought I was going to have a fight on my hands because the Shelby County, a lot of the kids that go to Shelby County, well, both high schools here are they
Uh-huh.
have a lot of agricultural kids there, and they were irate in a good way. I mean, it's shocking to them to see these numbers. They see the growth around them, but when you start giving it really concrete sort of statistics
Mm-hmm.
for them to really, but what really shocked them was I showed them where I grew up in Louisville, which was fairly rural in 1972 when my parents moved there. Uh, we had a tree farm on one side of our neighborhood, a horse farm on the other, and just vacant fields on and
Mm-hmm.
a patch of woods on the other. We were surrounded by open land. So I showed them an aerial photograph of that area from like 1971 or something like that. And then I showed them Google Earth from today. And,
Oh.
they're like, holy moly, they were shocked at the transformation. And
Yeah.
I told them, I said, this is what's happening out here now. Oh, no, no, it's not. No, it's not. We can't let that happen. And I said, you better brace yourselves because it's happening. And already they say that we're going to keep up the housing demand in Shelby County, that we're going to have to over the next 10 years build 7,500 new homes.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that's a staggering number. And
That is, yeah.
where do you build those homes? How do you supply road systems to those homes? And
Yeah.
that's our challenge in Shelby County right now. And this is the discussion I had with the leadership Shelby group the other day, and they were a little shocked. These people a lot of these people have their finger on the pulse of what's going on around here. But when you see it, so my point is, where are we in Shelby County? Um, I feel like that we're just almost completely disconnected from that history that we just discussed.
Yeah.
Pioneers, agricultural oriented. Now we are manufacturing and suburban. And
Mm-hmm.
traditionally rural agricultural county that I
Yeah.
remember when it was still that way. I lived close enough to Shelby County. You know, my world was so small growing up in Louisville that a trip to Shelby County was like, "You're going to Shelby County? What are you going to do?" And we would occasionally see kids with Shelby County Letterman jackets, you know,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in St. Matthews or something like that. They're like, what are they doing here? As high school students, you're used to seeing Trinity and Wagner kids around
Yeah.
these Shelby County kids. But now there's no delineation between the two because the Louisville suburbs have moved out and joined Shelby
Mm-hmm.
County. They're into Shelby County now, and we're getting our land is being all parceled out into building. There's a new development going in, 400 homes going in,
Wow.
and that's
Yeah.
very foreign to these people right now. And what's funny is those kids at Shelby County High School, at some point, I revealed that I grew up in Louisville in my discussion. One kid goes, "Well, you're part of the problem." I can't deny that. But
Yeah.
so some people in our discussions about economic growth out here in Shelby County, people ask them, "Well, why are they coming out here?" I said, "It's quiet. We don't have riots." I know I'll be flamed for saying this by people from Louisville, uh, and we protect our people.
Mm-hmm.
You know that I work for the city of Shelbyville, so when we have discussions about what our mission is, and that it is to protect our citizens. That's our
Mm-hmm.
number one mission as a municipality, and I think that's lost in other places. Louisville. So
Well,
I
well,
told a business person that was interested in moving his business from from Louisville to Shelbyville. I said, we've been riot free since 1792. The riot was the founder of Louisville, William Shannon. He and I can't remember the other guy's name. They got into a fight in a tavern here in Shelbyville, and William Shannon picked up a rock and threw it and hit the other guy with the rock, and the other guy pulled out a dagger and threw it and sunk it into William Shannon's chest, and he just dropped dead right there in the in the tavern. And the other guy later died from the wounds from the rock throwing. So that was our riot.
Yeah.
It was basically a bar fight.
Well, now some people might consider releasing the coon dogs to chase the
I'll tell you what,
that's a riot.
The coon drag. The first time somebody told me about that, I know my jaw dropped. We used to also have they used to have pigeon shoots in downtown Shelbyville, and the county is restoring the courthouse, which is this marvelous Greek Revival building. It's really truly a Kentucky landmark. It is one of the most beautiful courthouses in the state, and they've gone up and taken off a lot of the metal trimming from the pediment and the cornices around the building. And this group from Ohio are doing the work. The guy asked me, he goes, "Why are there bullet holes all over these things?" They're shooting pigeons. It was a yearly thing. People go downtown and shoot pigeons. So basically, they shot up the courthouse. And, that was the same sort of culture of the coon drag, basically. And that's the kind of stuff that gives southern towns or Kentucky towns, small towns, a little bit of a bad name. People carrying guns around, shooting pigeons, and dragging coons through downtown. But it was a different time.
Yes.
But both of those are long gone. I don't think they've done a coon drag since the 1960s. There might be people that can pinpoint that better than me when they last did that.
Well, one thing I guess to bring up, because comparison is it's pretty astonishing, the statistics there of the change of Shelby County over the history. In say some other county histories we've done, Pike County, Carter County, you had this, the slower, I guess, arrival of people, settlement, because of the terrain. Then you would have this, long time period of timber, and then coal would come in, and then it would be coal for so long. And even today, it's a very small percentage now. Even now, it's just there's really not been that, I guess, replacement of industry or economics in some of those areas. But it's the same. It's the same in Shelby County. You have hemp. It's just a different agricultural change, and it's similar in many places. It's just a different resource.
And I always say it's adaptive agricultural. Shelby County is very adaptive. We're very blessed with rich soil in large parts of the county. See, I'll hold this up. I hope you can see it. Let me make sure I have it. It's going to be backwards on there, I guess. But that is a soils map of Shelby County from 1920, and you can see all this through here. That's very rich farmland, very productive farmland. For anything you put in the ground or put on the ground, it's going to be successful. Livestock, crops, whatever, and that's what makes the county made it an agriculture juggernaut. Well, what I point out to people when I talk about the future of Shelby County is that in some ways we haven't changed, and our land continues to be one of the most valuable assets that we have outside of the human element. It's all buildable. Except for over in this part of the county, over in the east, over in the east here. That's part of the Eden Shales. That's very hilly. It's still buildable, but it's not as desirable. So much of the rest of the county is rolling, and it has underlying bedrock with plenty of soil over the bedrock. What made the bluegrass so productive
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
horses, basically, is the same. It is the recipe for tract housing.
Hmm.
Stable ground, fairly level, easy to get around.
Yeah.
It's very marketable. I want to talk about a couple of one very famous event here in
Okay.
Shelbyville. This might be kind of a little bit of trivia sort of thing.
All righty.
So, the highest point in the bluegrass region is in Shelby County.
Oh,
It is
really?
an area called Jephthah Knob, and
Hmm.
if you read about Jephthah Knob, we know that it was. I hope I say this right. A cryptoplasmic event that created Jephthah Knob, and there's a debate among geologists about if it was created by a volcano that pushed up, millions of years ago, but never really erupted. It just pushed the land up, or if it's a sideways impact crater from a meteor. But they
Oh.
do know that it was a cryptoplasmic event, that
Hmm.
something hit it or pushed it up. Uh, so that Jephthah Knob is the highest point in the bluegrass, and sometimes you see on old maps you see it listed as Jephthah Mountain. Not a mountain; it's a knob.
That's just.
That's one of the interesting little tidbits about Shelby County. The other one is in downtown Shelbyville. I don't think the mayor likes it when I say this, but we have what I call the killing corner. It's
I
the
could see why that might be
yeah,
the
it's
mayor
the
might not like that.
intersection of 6th and Main Street. Uh, During the Civil War, there was a bushwhacker named Edward Terrell. I know his last name was Terrell. Uh, he was a very opportunistic bushwhacker. There's evidence that he bushwhacked for both sides, whatever suited him. Probably whatever
Mhm.
gave him the most money, or horses or food or whatever else he could plunder. He took that side, and he he was notoriously for coming into Shelbyville and robbing people, or in Shelby County.
Yeah.
So I think, if I have the story right, there was a rumor that he was going to come in and burn the courthouse, because I think they maybe housed Union soldiers in the courthouse or something like that. Not the
Yeah.
courthouse that's there today. And so when he came into town, some of the residents of Shelbyville killed him right there at 6th and Main. Uh, and that was the end of the bushwhacker Ed Terrell. Uh, Fast forward a few years in 1937. This is a very famous incident in Kentucky history. Uh, the former lieutenant governor, Henry H. Denhart,
Mhm.
in 1937, maybe it was late 36. He had started. He took up with a woman from Oldham County named Vera Gar Taylor, I think was her last name. Married name was Taylor. She was a Gar, and on a drive out into Henry County, or what was Kentucky 22 at the time, uh, she ended up dead. It was just the
Mm.
two of them, you know,
Yeah.
her and General Denhart, and she. Uh, he claimed that she shot herself in the chest with a 45 pistol, big hog leg 45. Uh, but he was tried for her murder in Henry County, and it ended in a hung jury in 1937. So in the spring of 1937, so he was going to be retried again in Henry County. Denhart didn't feel safe of staying in Henry County, so he stayed in Shelbyville.
Mhm.
On the eve of the trial, he was staying at the Armstrong Hotel, which was at the corner of 6th and Main in downtown Shelbyville. And Vera's brothers, the three brothers, the Gar brothers, one of whom was named Stanton Gar. He was the oldest. Uh, he, they came into Shelbyville that night from LaGrange. Uh, those people in Oldham County come down here and cause trouble all the time. There's no difference in 1937. Uh, he uh, he ate a little restaurant up near the courthouse and was walking with his attorney back down to the Armstrong Hotel. Well, the Gar brothers were in their car on 6th Street. As he approached the hotel, they came out of the car, and probably with the intent to do him harm. Well, there's a dispute about who drew guns first,
Mm-hmm.
and the Gar brothers shot him down dead. And right there, he ran towards the Armstrong Hotel and fell dead in the entryway of the hotel.
Oh,
Most of the hotel burned in 1944, but that entrance is still there, so you can go stand where old Henry
very
Denhart
good.
breathed his last. And so the Gar brothers went on trial in Shelbyville. They stayed at they were put into the Shelby County Jail, but they never went into the jail, which is this magnificent stone structure behind the courthouse. They just stayed in the jailer's house. You know, they spent the night with the jailer, and they went to trial and they were acquitted for Denhart's murder. I guess they claimed that he drew first and they were shooting at
Oh,
something.
okay.
I don't know. It's a very famous incident. There's a wonderful book called. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I got it somewhere on there. Dang it, I don't see it.
That might be a
It's
podcast
called
episode in its own.
It's called Dark Highway,
Uh-huh.
and I can't remember. Dark Highway. Hang on a second.
All right.
Written by Anne D'Angelo.
Okay.
An excellent piece of scholarship. I can't ever.
Mm-hmm.
She's an attorney and wrote that book. I highly recommend people read that book, and you get the full recount of the Denhart killing on our main street here in Shelbyville by a bunch of ruffians from Oldham County.
Oldham County.
Yeah, just a bunch of troublemakers. So, and of course, Colonel Sanders lived the remainder of his life here in Shelby County, and he was a fixture around town. Just a common. It was common for people to see him, and of course, his wife opened the Claudia Sanders restaurant, which is west of Shelbyville on US 60. And a lot of people here called it the Colonel's Lady, is what they would call that restaurant. But its official name is Claudia Sanders. It's still a very popular place to eat in Shelby County.
Oh, cool.
So, those are just kind of little trivia. The astronomer Edmund or Edward Hubble, the Hubble telescope, his name, lived in Shelby County for a brief period of time. I think 9 months. It lived on Bland Avenue. The house is still there. Somebody approached me about the possibility of putting up a historical marker in front of the house. Signifying that he lived there. It's a nice claim. And here in Shelbyville, we have the Science Hill, the old Science Hill Academy building, which has boutique shops in it, and a restaurant called the Red Lion, which is a very good restaurant. The Science Hill Academy was started in 1825. It was a girls' school, but this is what was different about Science Hill. It wasn't teaching home economics or how to be a good housewife or anything like that. It was teaching science and mathematics to young ladies who came from all over the South, primarily Kentucky. But there was, they had students from every southern state at Science Hill, and so it's unique in that it was.
Yeah, that's a bit ahead of its time.
Very, very far ahead of its time, and it was a school from 1825 till, I think, up until the 1950s. So that building still stands, and so that is a very important part of Shelbyville's history. I think that's kind of all there's a lot of other odd stories in Shelbyville. There was for a time there was a young black man that lived here in Shelbyville, and his name was Sam. I can't remember his last name right now. I actually wrote an article about him once, and he was probably today he would be on the autism spectrum. But Sam he was a savant with mathematics. If he knew the diameter or even the radius of a wheel, he could figure out how far that wheel would roll before it made a complete circuit.
Wow.
And so and he was a bit of a like almost sadly, he was a bit of a freak show in Shelbyville. People would challenge him to all these mathematical figures, but somebody in Shelbyville, I never could determine who, uh, got him in the 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago, the World's Fair.
Yeah.
They paid for his way up there to be in the mathematics B, and he won it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean the guy was a genius, but apparently he didn't think very well outside of the realm of mathematics. To avoid cliche, but I'll say it anyway. Basically, kind of like Rain Man from the movie Rain Man.
Yeah.
Is the best I could tell. So,
Yeah.
an interesting figure. He led a very troubled life, and unfortunately, was run over by a train over Louisville.
Oh gosh.
To this day, I warn Shelby counties to stay out of Louisville.
Understandably.
For the Sam guy, he's minding his business over Louisville. A train ran over him. So,
yeah.
But I'm not anti-Louisville. I play like I said, I grew up in Louisville, so.
Yeah, yeah. When think about Shelby County, obviously, the first town comes to mind is Shelbyville. You mentioned Simpsonville. What other? I mean, you don't have to go into story. Just some names of the local places
the most famous is the combination you see on the interstate, Waddy Paytona. Waddy and Paytona. There's Waddy, Paytona, and Baghdad. I call it the Tri-City area. It's over in eastern Shelby County, and all three are nice towns. But Baghdad is probably, I guess, the most vibrant of those three. It used to have a branch of the Citizen Union Bank there. I think that closed years ago, and so they have a grocery in downtown Baghdad, and then Waddy is just like a railroad crossing and a few houses around it.
Yeah.
There's Christiansburg and Todd's Point. Those are kind of the larger towns, and of course Mount Eden, which I can't ever decide if it's actually in Spencer County or Shelby County. It might be right on the line. I never know when I get down there. I get kind of turned around where I am, but it's considered. I think it's considered part of Shelby County.
Yeah.
Another little tidbit, something I'm researching is that we're talking about the horses. We actually had a horse race track here in Shelby County for a very brief amount of time. It's called Brent Lawn Race Course, and it was a harness racing track, and it was the first lit racetrack in Kentucky. I don't know. Somebody would probably challenge me on that, and they might win it. But it was they started harness racing at Brent Lawn there in 1947, and in the last year for the racing was 1955. But they raced at night, and the county line, Jefferson County, Shelby County line, bisects the old track, and there's remnants of the track still out there in the woods. And I believe by measurement and all, I believe that the county line was right at the finish line of the racetrack. So, and you know how racetracks get their own kind of language. There's a whole different language associated with horse racing. But when a horse wasn't doing well coming down the stretch at Brent Lawn, they say it's being left in Shelby County. And the other interesting thing about the grandstand at Brent Lawn was that Jefferson County was wet, Shelby County dry. So they painted a line where the county line was. On the Jefferson County side, you could have alcohol, but you couldn't take it over on the Shelby County side.
Oh my goodness.
But that track was designed by Charles Black, the same guy who designed the track at Keeneland. So they made it. This was a serious effort to have first-class harness racing in Shelby County, and it just didn't take hold. It was too far from Louisville. They tried busing people out from the Brown Hotel at one point, and I don't think Shelby County ever really embraced it. Although most of the track was in Shelby County, and the horse barns for the track were in Shelby County. Part of the grandstand was in Shelby County. It just I don't think Shelby County ever really embraced it. But it's kind of an interesting story about a track that was in two counties.
Yeah, well, people do what they can, I guess, for the booze,
Yeah, that's right. So I can't think of any other really good stories. There's a lot. I mean, you know, uh, I hear a lot of stories from some of the older gentlemen here in Shelby County, and I can't remember all of it, but
Yeah.
they're always good for a laugh.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of good stories out there, I guess. And that's one thing. Each county has plenty of their old uh, interesting stories. Whether it be a split horse track or in
Yeah.
Rockcastle County, they changed the county line. Like in Frankfurt, they changed the county line so that one of the politicians could sell their booze
Oh,
on their
really?
side of the.
How about
Yeah.
that? One of my favorite stories. There was a I don't know if you know about him. There was a writer for the Courier Journal named Joe Creason, and
Mhm.
he had a regular column in the Courier Journal and also in the Louisville Times back when Louisville still had two newspapers. And he was a great teller of tales. Uh, and he wrote about this lady who lived in a cabin somewhere along the Breckinridge County Hardin County line. And these surveyors came out and surveyed the county line, and they came to her and they said, well, "Hey, you don't live in Breckinridge County anymore. You're in Hardin County." Uh, and she said, "Whew, that's a relief. I tell you, the last few winters in Breckinridge County have been terrible."
That's
So
good.
yeah, I love those kinds of stories. Joe Creason was
Yeah.
great, a very great writer who was taken from us too soon. He was 54 years
Mhm.
old, had a heart attack while playing tennis, and
Oh, man.
he's
Yeah.
he traveled the state of Kentucky. Uh, I think I read something he wrote one time that he goes to all 100. He went to all 120 counties every year
Mhm.
uh, as
Wow.
a reporter for the Courier Journal, which is
Okay.
remarkable. A
Yeah.
tremendous amount of stamina to be able to do that. And there's
Yeah.
photos of him, up in East Kentucky on horseback going up a holler to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Wow. That's
he
impressive. That's
yeah,
right.
very impressive.
Well, that's quite a bit of good information about old Shelby County, and there's probably plenty more we could talk about, but we will wrap it up here. Again, Mr. Kirkwood, thanks for coming on. Anything else before we go?
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking to it. I hope everybody enjoys my goofy stories about Shelby County.
Well, I sure did, and I learned a lot, and I'm sure the listeners did as well. Again, thanks for joining us, and for all of the listeners out there, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.
Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/kyhistorypod. You've probably heard about Daniel Boone, but what about the rest of the frontiersmen who came to Kentucky and settled? That's what we want to bring to the Kentucky History Channel. The stories of the untold, the stories of those forgotten. One thing to expect on our channel is great Kentucky content. Some stories that you've never heard of. The Night Riders, who began in western Kentucky. Bloody Monday, the riots in Louisville. The assassination of Governor Goebel, the only governor ever assassinated in the United States. Stories from all over Kentucky, stories that are unforgettable once you've heard them. You can find out who counties in Kentucky are named after and how your county got started From beginning to end, we plan to document every county in Kentucky, all 120. Reach out to us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos. You can also check out our podcast episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many more. We're always seeking to find more Kentucky history so we can bring it to you, the viewers, the listeners. We want all the stories and all the events from Kentucky's great history to be told and shared everywhere.